Hello dear friends, residents of the city of Kagoshima in Japan were stunned when a fire-breathing mountain suddenly erupted on a bright day. A new eruption of the Sakurajima volcano has occurred in the land of the rising sun. These spectacular moments, filmed even from a tourist ferry, are now in front of you on your screens. Scientists reported that the volcanic ash column rose to a height of about 3,700 meters, and its clouds stretched for kilometers in a southeastern direction. Eyewitnesses report that the ashfall enveloped even some of the outskirts of the city. One witness claims that as he was leaving a judo hall, he stepped on a sidewalk covered in gray dust. Sakurajima is one of the most active volcanoes in Japan, and its previous major eruption was recorded in July this year. Dozens of streets in Italy are now overflowing with water, with outdoor cafes having to rescue their furniture from the water. There is also no power supply in some areas of Rome. This situation is due to the unexpected downpours that affected several cities, but Ostia Antica suffered the most. It is reported that more than 100 millimeters of precipitation fell here in 2.5 hours. Car traffic has become problematic, and on some parts of the roads traffic is completely paralyzed. Rescuers have received dozens of calls with requests for help, but at the moment there is no information about casualties or fatalities. Emergency services are active around the clock, and residents are asked to stay in their homes. Let's move on to the most pressing topic of today's issue, which is developing in the Middle East and is becoming increasingly complex, tragic, and dynamic. Our goal is to cover humanitarian aspects and related news without trying to identify the guilty or the right thing to do. We call for an intelligent review of events for the benefit of those ordinary people who simply want to live in peace. Let us begin with the situation at the Rafah crossing, which has become a point of attraction for hundreds of thousands of refugees seeking to leave the bombarded Gaza Strip. Israel recently forced 1 million people from the north of the enclave to leave their homes and head for the border with Egypt, more specifically the southern part of the Gaza Strip. This demand, while harsh and cynical, has been publicized. People who were able to reach the Rafah crossing were confronted with the fact that they were not allowed across the border. Moreover, areas near the Rafah border crossing were again shelled, according to Palestinian ambassador to Egypt Diab al-Luha. He emphasized that Israeli authorities are allegedly preventing the wounded from being taken to Egypt for treatment. At the moment, international and Arab countries are making efforts to restore the checkpoint. Israel has also promised to do so, assuring U.S. Secretary of State Blinken that civilians will be able to leave the enclave safely. More than 100 trucks waiting to leave Al Arish with humanitarian aid for the Palestinian enclave are still waiting at the border. At the same time, a humanitarian stalemate continues in the Gaza Strip. Water and electricity supplies have never been restored. Despite UN claims of ongoing efforts to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza, life there is becoming almost impossible. Food and medicine in hospitals are running out, and gas stations in the enclave, for example, are completely depleted of fuel. This jeopardizes the lives of thousands injured in airstrikes, as medical facilities are now only able to function thanks to electric generators. Locals say with bitterness in their voices that the world community is turning a blind eye to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It was confirmed once again in New York that the UN Security Council did not approve Russia's resolution on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, which called for an immediate ceasefire. In addition to Moscow, China, the Arab Emirates, Gabon, and Mozambique voted in favor of the document. While 4 countries, the US, UK, France, and Japan, expressed their opposition, 6 countries abstained. And to conclude this topic, we should note another important news that instantly spread around the world. U.S. President Joe Biden is scheduled to arrive in Israel on October 18 to, as he put it, reaffirm U.S. solidarity with Israel and our continued commitment to its security. It remains an open question what exactly President Biden will say and, most importantly, what agreements will be reached in favor of peace or continued conflict. It is frightening to think that his statements may remain only at the level of rhetoric. And what are your opinions and assumptions, dear friends? Feel free to share them in the comments. And now we move on to the following information. In Herat, Afghanistan, many people are forced to live on the streets. Families gather in pitch tents, spending nights in the open air. Despite the efforts of the authorities and emergency services, access to medicines and basic needs is not always guaranteed. The situation is exacerbated by a new earthquake that struck just a couple of days ago. Specialists recorded tremors with a magnitude of 6.3 and an aftershock with a magnitude of 5.5 followed shortly thereafter. They informed that at least 2 people died and more than 100 were injured. Many houses, roads, architectural and historical monuments were destroyed. In this situation, Afghanistan has appealed to the international community for help. Local residents now rely only on the hope that the earthquakes will stop over time and they will be able to rebuild their lives. In the village of Pridorozhnoye, near Donetsk, the local zoo is adding new residents. In the past few months, there have been rabbit cubs, 5 young lion cubs, 7 ponies, as well as a new llama and even small bison. This zoo has been in existence for 30 years, and last winter it faced the threat of closure, resulting in a reduction in staff. The difficulties faced by the employees were voiced on a YouTube channel. Soon, concerned viewers began to make donations, and the zoo gradually returned to normal. Previously, the institution was mainly supported by crop and livestock farming, but the prices for the products produced have dropped significantly. Currently, the zoo continues its activities thanks to the support of people from all over Russia. The staff actively shares information about the life of the animals in social networks, where anyone who wishes can contribute to the maintenance of the zoo. This is an amazing rescue story. It is connected with a cat named Lipsy from Chelyabinsk. This cat was recently involved in an emergency situation, colliding with an electric train, resulting in serious injuries. Lipsy was discovered by attentive volunteers, her voice meowing shrilly and begging for help. When the cat was taken to the veterinary clinic, her condition was assessed as extremely serious. Her pregnancy added to the trauma, but unfortunately her kittens could not be saved. The chances of survival for the mother were minimal. Lipsy lost one of her paws completely and the other was amputated down to the joint. She is currently undergoing successful rehabilitation. Specialists say that her incredible drive for life was the key to her recovery. Now Lipsy is looking for caring and reliable hands. Until a loving family is found, she remains in the care of her temporary owner. And finally, a nice touch, it's about beauty. We are talking about rice fields, or rather rice terraces in Guilin, China. These impressive terraces are more than 700 years old and stretch for about 70 kilometers. They are mostly tended by ethnic groups. In the fall, the rice terraces are transformed into a natural wonderland by the amazing shimmering colors. The terraces themselves are very narrow and usually consist of only 3, 4, 5 rows of rice. When you see them up close, it becomes obvious how much effort and labor is put into tending them. The Guilin region has almost no vegetation, as is typical in the north of the country. This is why the rice terraces are impressive and inspiring to tourists and locals alike. The harvest will soon begin, but for now, you can enjoy the splendor of this place. Friends, which story in this issue piqued your interest the most? What are your views on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict from a humanitarian perspective? Why do you think military aid is being delivered so quickly while the issues of food, water, medicine, and refugee assistance remain unresolved for days, weeks, and months? Do you think the world community will help Afghanistan, where people are forced to live in tents outside after a series of earthquakes? And what do you think of the story of the zoo near Donetsk, which shows courage and care in such difficult times? Please share your opinions in the comments. May peace and goodness always accompany you and your families, and, of course, do not forget to take care of yourselves and our common home, our planet, always remaining people with a capital letter.